Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let your arms go heavy, your breath slow. And as you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing what time it is, where you are, and what city or village you're listening from. It's love to know. And if you'd like more quiet stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so they gently appear when you need them most. Now, you are lying still now, your body at rest, a quiet room, soft blanket of air. The earth feels steady beneath you. It's hard, solid, sure. It gives you something to sleep on, something to walk on, something to believe in. You trust it without thinking. The ground holds you up, and so you forget it's even there, but beneath your floor, beneath your town, beneath the deepest layers of stone. The earth is not still. It only seems that way. This is the story of a planet that is always shifting, always breathing. Not in gasps, not in quakes that topple cities, but in subtle motions that whisper instead of shout. There are earthquakes. Yes, but there are also silent earthquakes. No rumble, no crash, no sudden split in the sidewalk, only the soft rearrangement of pressure. The quiet sigh of rocks, remembering how to move, and it all happens without you knowing. Even now, as you lie in stillness, somewhere beneath the crust and darkness you'll never see. Two vast plates of earth are sliding past one another in a slow machine ballet of stress and surrender. They don't jolt, they don't scream, they glide. But make no mistake, they are earthquakes, just the same. Slower, gentler, longer. Some of them take days, some take weeks, some last for months, rippling underground like a dream beneath stone. Imagine a fault line, not breaking with a snap, but stretching, yielding, like softened wax beneath your feet. This is not destruction, it's movement, it's release. Geologists call them slow slip events. Movements too slow to rattle your teacup, too smooth to register panic, but powerful enough to shift entire landscapes. They relieve tension deep underground, preventing worse quakes by letting the stress out softly. Pressure valve for the planet's crust. A breath, not a blast. You do not feel them, but they change the very ground you live on, and somehow that makes them more mysterious, more poetic, more like you, because how much of your own change happens silently? How many of your biggest shifts begin not with trauma, but with a thought, a pause, a slow letting go? The earth, it turns out, knows how to be quiet, okay? And not just in the deserts, not just in the tundras, but inside itself. Imagine that, a planet that knows how to whisper. The silence is not absence, it is presence, moving differently. It is motion without explosion, transformation without spectacle, a lesson in how to change without breaking. Beneath the Pacific Northwest, beneath the hills of Japan, beneath the seabeds of New Zealand, these silent earthquakes unfold in darkness, a tectonic pulse, a slow rearranging of the Earth's puzzle pieces. Each one is vast, sometimes spanning hundreds of kilometers. Each one moves masses beyond imagining, yet with the delicacy of velvet shifting in a box. If you stood directly above one, you would not know. You'd hear no sirens, see no cracks. You might simply feel restless or peaceful, or nothing at all, because that is the nature of silent things. They don't announce themselves. They become and what causes them. It's what starts these hushed journeys. Below, the answer, as always, is pressure. Two plates, enormous slabs of crust, pressed together. Over time, they lock, they strain, they wait. Then, instead of snapping, they give in slowly. This is not surrender. It's wisdom. The rocks beneath us know what many of us take years to learn, that some tensions are released better in whispers than in roars. As you breathe in now and breathe out, know that deep beneath your body, the earth too is releasing, breathing out its own pressure, in movements so slow they barely count as motion, and that movement keeps things whole. It makes space for other changes, prevents catastrophe, or sometimes foretells it. Silent earthquakes are not always saviors. Times they come before the loud ones, but often they do their work with grace. They are Earth's gentle moments, hidden below, working without fanfare. And that's the thing about gentleness. It often works hardest when no one is looking. Your own body is shifting. 2. As you fall toward sleep, your muscles loosen, your thoughts drift sideways, your breathing softens. Nothing dramatic, no sharp break between wakefulness and dream, just the slow slide inward, a quiet quake of consciousness. You might think silence means nothing is happening, but tonight, the earth shows you otherwise. Beneath you, a fault line slips, a continent exhales, a mountain base realigns without a sound, and perhaps tomorrow, nothing will appear different. Your shoes will still sit by the door, the trees outside will still stand, birds will still call at dawn, but something underneath, something deep, will have changed. That's enough. That's more than enough. Maybe you too are changing like this, not loudly, not dramatically, but gently, consistently, underground. Maybe something inside you is shifting, an old belief softening, worry easing, a new idea finding its place. No one may notice, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. The most meaningful changes rarely come with applause. They come with breath. They come with time. They come like silent earthquakes, below the surface, out of sight, but undeniable once you look back. So, tonight, as you sleep, let the ground do its quiet work. Let it shift what it needs to shift. Let it show you that not all movement needs to be loud. Not all transformation must break something to be true. Let the stillness beneath you be full of motion, because stillness that isn't still is often the most powerful kind. Last lines end as you drift further into rest. Ask yourself quietly, what else in your life might be moving without a sound? What changes are unfolding beneath the surface, gently, patiently, just waiting to be felt? Next comes the question, what is a silent earthquake? You are breathing slowly now, eyes heavy, thoughts softened into mist. Stillness surrounds you, but something deeper is beginning, an inquiry, a curiosity. What is a silent earthquake? You've heard of earthquakes, of course. The word itself holds drama. Quake, evokes a suddenness, a rupture, the world splitting without warning, chandeliers swinging, sirens rising, walls sighing into collapse. But not all earthquakes arrive like that. Some never shatter. Don't jolt or break or tear. They drift, and this drifting is still seismic. It's just spread out over time, over space, over stillness. These are silent earthquakes, also known by scientists as slow slip events. To understand them, imagine holding your hands together tightly. There's tension in your muscles. Now, slowly slide one hand past the other, not all at once, but gradually, almost imperceptibly. You still feel the strain, but there's no snap. It's just a release, gentle, continuous, like something being allowed to move after a long, patient wait. Now, imagine this. Not with hands, but with countenance. Tectonic plates are unimaginably vast, huge slabs of the Earth's crust, rigid, massive, and always in motion. Some collide, some drift apart, some scrape alongside one another, but they're never still. At their edges, the fault lines, pressure builds. Usually, that pressure stays trapped. The plates catch against each other, refusing to move. And over months or years, tension accumulates, like water behind a dam. Eventually, something gives. And that's the kind of earthquake we know best. Fast, destructive, immediate. But sometimes, before the tension reaches its limit, it eases softly, silently, without a quake in the traditional sense. These are slow earthquakes. They release the same kind of energy, but not all at once. Take their time. Imagine a standard earthquake compressing its drama into seconds. A silent earthquake unfolds that same event across days, or weeks, or longer. Because of this, they don't shake buildings. They don't trigger seismographs in the same way. They are almost visible, except to those who know how to listen. Silent earthquakes were once unknown. Till the late 1990s, geologists didn't realize the Earth could slip so quietly. It was in places like Japan and the Pacific Northwest that the first clues emerged. Satellites noticed something strange. The ground was shifting slowly, without accompanying noise or destruction. It wasn't subsidence, it wasn't erosion. It was a quake, but one that had taken a vow of silence. These events rewrote what scientists thought they knew. They changed the definition of what it means for the Earth to quake. It's not about sound, it's not about speed, it's about movement. And sometimes, movement happens in ways that are too patient to notice. Just as there are fast storms and slow rains, there are violent quakes and graceful slips. Both are real, both matter, but only one tends to make headlines. Imagine a stretch of land from Vancouver Island to Washington State. Every 14 months or so, the earth beneath this region undergoes a massive shift. It moves a few centimeters. Nothing you can feel, but it does it across hundreds of kilometers and takes about 2 weeks to finish. In human terms, it's like watching a glacier dance, or listening to music so low you feel it more than hear it. It is real, and it is powerful. It's just not loud. Scientists discovered this by combining sensitive GPS networks with new satellite data. They weren't looking for earthquakes. They were measuring land deformation, how the ground itself changes shape, and slowly a pattern emerged. Over and over again, the land was slipping. The pressure was shifting. No buildings fell. No roads cracked, but the earth was talking. Just in a language no one had ever heard before. These discoveries changed more than geology. They changed how we think about force, about pressure, about release. Because in a world that often celebrates speed and impact, slow earthquakes are reminders that strength has many forms. They suggest that resolution doesn't always need rupture. That movement can be healing, not just harmful. Some changes, when allowed to unfold gently, don't leave damage in their wake. And so now, scientists listen. They monitor these events. They study how they build, how they finish, and what they might tell us about future quakes. Because sometimes, silent earthquake is just a pressure release. But other times, it may signal something louder is on the way. It is not a warning exactly. It's more like a suggestion, an invitation to pay attention. You might not realize it, but you carry slow slip events in your own life too. Moments of inner pressure. But things don't quite feel right, but there's no dramatic blowout. Just a soft realignment. An idea that settles in over weeks. A tension that fades, not with argument, but with quiet understanding. It is still a shift. It is still powerful, just quieter than you expected. Maybe it was a day you let go of something you've been holding for too long, not with a scream, but with a breath. That was your silent earthquake. Or perhaps you changed your mind about something that defined you, not because someone persuaded you, but because time whispered differently in your ear. That was a slow slip. 2. So when the earth moves without sound, it mirrors something deeply human, our capacity to change without breaking. Silent earthquakes are not absence. They are an alternate form of presence. They are not weak. They are wise. They know that sometimes what matters most happens gradually beneath the surface, far from noise, with no applause. And just as the earth learns to move gently, so can you. There is no shame in slowness, no failure in subtlety. Every shift counts, even if no one else feels it. Especially if no one else feels it, because that means it was yours. Real, internal, and earned. Tonight, the earth may be slipping beneath you. It may be shifting burdens. It has held too long, not with fury, but with grace. And you, as you rest, may be doing the same. You don't have to feel it. You just have to trust it. Trust the movement that feels like stillness. Trust the transformation that whispers instead of roars. The earth does, and it's been doing this for millions of years. Last line, so next time you feel nothing, when the day passes quietly, when your thoughts drift like clouds without storm, ask yourself, could something deeper be slipping into place? Could softness be strength? And if so, what else might the earth be saying in its quietest, most careful voice? Next comes the language of tectonic whispers. The night is still, quiet now. Your thoughts a low tide. There is space between each breath, a gentle rhythm that rocks you toward sleep. Yet beneath you, far beneath, the earth is humming, not loud, not urgent, but constant. This hum is not audible in the way birds sing or wind rustles. It is a seismic whisper, a murmur of deep things shifting slowly over time. To hear it, you need something more precise than ears. You need instruments. Cued. You need patience. You need to listen in a new way, the way scientists do when they study the secret language of tectonic whispers. Seismology is the study of Earth's vibrations. And most people think of it as a science of alarms, earthquakes, tremors, sudden jolts. But there's a quieter side, a softer register, a spectrum of motion so faint it doesn't rattle teacups or set chandeliers swinging. These are the non-earthquakes movements that do not shake the surface, but still speak volumes about what's happening underneath. To detect them, scientists use seismometers, tools so sensitive they can pick up the footfall of an ant if the conditions are just right. They listen, not just for shocks, but for signals, not just for booms, but for patterns. Imagine sitting beside a piano, not playing it, but pressing your ear gently against the wood. Even if no one is playing, you might hear the faint echo of past notes, resonance still lingering in the strings. That is what a tectonic whisper is like. Not a noise, a signature, a fingerprint, a soft-spoken record of movement you weren't awake to witness, and yet it happened. One of the most fascinating discoveries in modern seismology was not a quake itself, but a pattern of background tremor. It was in subduction zones, where one tectonic plate slides beneath another, that scientists noticed something odd in places like Cascadia, Japan, and New Zealand. Their sensors were picking up faint, rhythmic vibrations, not random, not chaotic, but pulses, like a heartbeat, only slower, deeper, older. These were not earthquakes. They were tectonic whispers, tremors that repeated across months or years, often coinciding with known slow slip events. But here's the wonder. They were completely imperceptible to human beings. This presented a mystery. How could something be moving so steadily, so widely, and still escape our notice? The answer lies in frequency. Earthquakes vibrate at higher frequencies. They move the ground fast, sharp, high-energy waves. Our bodies feel that. Our buildings respond to that. That's why we call it a quake. But slow tremor vibrates at lower frequencies. Instead of a sharp clap, it's a long, deep breath, like the difference between lightning striking and fog rolling over hills. One is sudden. The other is slow, but just as real. Now imagine a team of researchers sitting at their monitors, headphones on, watching lines on a screen instead of listening with their ears. They see data, okay? And in that data, they find these soft, repeating signals. The earth is speaking, not in the language of words, but in waves. Waves that stretch across hundreds of kilometers, as if the continent is sighing inwardly, relaxing ancient pressure it has held for too long. To some, this might seem dull. There's no explosion, no twist in the plot. But to those who listen deeply, this is music, and there's something more. In many of these tectonic whispers, scientists notice something strange. They're often timed. They follow schedules. In places like Southwest Japan, Tremor bursts occur every 6 months in British Columbia and Washington state. They emerge every 14 months, right alongside the silent earthquakes. This is no coincidence. It's a rhythm, an internal clock ticking, not in seconds, but in slips. The earth keeps its own time, its own calendar of pressure and release. This discovery gave scientists a new idea, that silent earthquakes and tectonic tremor might be two sides of the same process. The tremor is like a signal, a flare in the darkness. It tells us that a slow earthquake is unfolding underground. The plates are moving, not violently, but meaningfully. And this whisper is the Earth's way of letting us know. Imagine your own mind for a moment. How many shifts happen inside you without ever being spoken? Not many decisions take shape in silence first. Every change begins with words. Some began as feelings, long before they find form in that way. You are like the earth, and the earth is like you. Some researchers go further. They now believe that listening to these whispers could help forecast major quakes. The logic is simple, but profound. If we can map the timing and pattern of tremor, we may better understand when stress is building and when it might release more violently. Already, in Japan, monitoring stations track these silent signals with extraordinary detail. The goal isn't prediction, not yet, but pattern recognition. Knowing when the earth is whispering may one day help us know when it is about to shout. But even if forecasting remains uncertain, these discoveries have deepened something else, our humility. Because the more we study these quiet movements, the more we realize how little we truly understand. We used to think of the earth as mostly stable, with occasional bursts of energy, but now we see it as constantly shifting, a slow motion dance we are just beginning to witness. There's something beautiful in that. A planet that speaks softly, yet never stops speaking. A language of vibration, pressure, release, and return. As you lie there now, you might imagine the crust beneath you as not solid, but supple, like an old leather book, thick and weathered, but still bending, still responding to touch. And below it, the mantle, the deep interior, moving with currents older than memory. And through all of this, a soundless pulse continues. The quiet shifting of world-sized plates under oceans, forests, and cities. Not in anger, not in warning, but in rhythm. Scientists have begun calling this the slow earthquake cycle. A phrase that sounds almost like a poem. And maybe that's what it is. A poem in geology. A stanza of movement. A verse made of silence. This cycle is something we've only just begun to grasp. It is not linear. It loops. It builds tension, releases it, builds again, releases again. Like breathing, like sleep, like the way you're drifting now. In and out of awareness as words drift across your mind like cloud shadows. You are participating in the same rhythm, the same pulse and quiet. You don't need to do anything. Feel it. Feel how the earth is not as still as it seems. Feel how movement can be kind. Feel how change can arrive without arrival. And as you begin to let go of today's tensions, of questions that don't need answers yet, of plans that can wait, you are tuning in to the deeper whispers, not just of earth, but of yourself. The soft messages you miss in the noise, the intuitive shifts, the truths that rise in silence. Because in the end, this chapter isn't about earthquakes, it's about listening. Two things that don't speak loudly. To the rhythm beneath your assumptions. To the parts of the world and yourself that prefer whispers over roars. The earth is always speaking, not just in crises, but in pulses, patterns, and patience. And now you're hearing it too. Last lines, you are beginning to understand that not all signals come with volume. Some are soft, like the earth exhaling beneath you while you sleep. But the message is still clear. If the planet can speak so gently and still reshape itself, What messages are waiting in the quietest corners of your own life? Next comes Cascadia's hidden murmurs. The map shows a beautiful coastline, tall evergreens meeting fog, mountains that rise like folded paper from the sea, towns built on old volcanic soil, fishing harbors that smell of salt and pine, and beaches where driftwood tells forgotten stories. This is the Pacific Northwest, but just offshore, invisible to the naked eye. Something immense is happening, has been for thousands of years. Welcome to the Cascadia Subduction Zone, a place where silence hides tension, as stillness is only skin-deep. It is not a place of explosions, not loud volcanoes or daily quakes, but a sleeping boundary where Earth's crust folds inward like a hand disappearing into a sleeve. And yet, it is one of the most dangerous places on the planet, not because it acts constantly, but because it waits. The quiet before the Cascadia Subduction Zone is where the Juan de Fuca plate dives slowly beneath the North American plate. This process, subduction, is ancient. It has shaped mountains, summoned volcanoes, and formed ocean trenches. But Cascadia is strange. Unlike places like Japan or Chile, which groan with frequent earthquakes, Cascadia has remained eerily silent. No major earthquakes, no dramatic fault line rumbles. For centuries, scientists assumed it was a quiet zone, a geologic oddity. Maybe the plates weren't locked. Maybe they were sliding peacefully. But then came the whispers. In the late 20th century, researchers began installing broadband seismometers along the coast. These were sensitive enough to pick up not just quakes, but any movement, even imperceptible ones. What they found was unsettling. There were signals, faint, rhythmic, recurring, and they weren't local. They echoed across hundreds of kilometers. They weren't felt by people. No rattling windows, no shifting ground, but they were real. They called them non-volcanic tremors, and they began to appear with a strange consistency, like a drumbeat, under layers of soil and rock. These tremors were accompanied by something else, slow slip events, instead of a sudden quake. Imagine two tectonic plates moving the distance of a few centimeters, but over the course of several weeks, the Earth still moves, still relieves pressure, but it does it slowly, silently. This changed everything. Cascadia wasn't quiet. It was whispering, and those whispers had a story to tell, a past remembered for years. Native oral histories in the region told of a great shaking, a time long ago when the ground rose and fell like waves, when forests sank and the sea swallowed villages. Western science hadn't recorded such an event. There was no written memory of it, no European records, no seismic sensors, just silence, until a group of scientists, curious about old cedar ghost forests and buried sand layers, began to look closer. And in 1987, Japanese historian discovered something remarkable. On January 27, 1700, a massive tsunami struck Japan. It came with no warning, no local earthquake to explain it. It arrived in the dead of night, silent, powerful, and mysterious. By tracing the wave patterns, scientists realized it had to come from far across the Pacific, from Cascadia. A magnitude 9.0 megathrust earthquake, one of the largest possible on Earth, had occurred right here, beneath what we now call Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia. It had been silent for centuries, but it had not been still. Listening to the present with that knowledge, seismologists began listening to Cascadia differently. Every tremor was now meaningful, every slow slip a message. The whispers weren't just geological quirks. They were clues about stress building up along the fault, clues about how soon or how suddenly another major event might occur. Every 14 months or so, scientists observed a pattern. A slow slip event would unfold beneath the region, as not destructive, but widespread. It would last for weeks, as if the Earth were exhaling pressure in slow motion. During this time, tremors would light up seismometers like fireflies. They call this period a tremor and slip event, and it happens like clockwork, as if the fault zone keeps time in deep, unseen hours. These events move the crust by a few millimeters. Not much, but enough to remind us the plates are locked. They're stuck, but not forever. They're grinding, pressing, waiting, and the slow slip is how they fidget in their restraints. What lies beneath? To imagine this, picture two massive blocks of rock, the size of continents, pressing against each other. Friction holds them in place, but energy builds slowly. It's like dragging a heavy box across a wooden floor. It resists. It resists. Then, suddenly, it slips. That slip is a quake. Cascadia hasn't had one since 1700. But the pressure is building again, and the tremors, hello. They may be the creaking floorboards beneath that heavy box. Scientists now monitor Cascadia constantly, using GPS, seismic arrays, ocean bottom pressure sensors, and every few months, they see it, the slow rumble of something deep and ancient, a tectonic murmur, a memory trying to surface. But even with all our instruments, we cannot yet predict when the next great rupture will occur. All we can do is listen and learn and prepare, because in Cascadia, silence is not a comfort. It is a sign that the earth is holding its breath. What the sea holds, the ocean plays its part too. Much of the Cascadia subduction zone lies offshore, beneath cold, black water where light doesn't reach and pressure flattens still. Submersibles have discovered methane seeps, ghostly white crabs, fields of chemosynthetic life, and in the sediment layers, records of past tsunamis. The sea remembers what the land forgets in quiet stacks of sand. Each tsunami left a fingerprint, and we're beginning to read them. Each layer a warning written in geology. Region asleep people live above these stories. Children play in coastal schools. Fishermen launch boats from harbors built on uplifted ground. Tourists take photos of lighthouses, all unaware that beneath their feet, the continent is engaged in a slow, grinding negotiation with the ocean floor. Not daily, not loudly, but relentlessly. And those who listen, the geologists, the seismologists, historians, know that one day the silence will break. The whisper will become a roar. But this isn't fear. It's awareness, because in listening to Cascadia, we learn not only about risk, but about patience, about timescales that don't match our own, about processes that unfold over centuries, not seconds, and perhaps about ourselves, the personal parallel, because just as Cascadia stores tension beneath a calm surface, so do we. We walk through our lives appearing still, but inside, a quiet tectonics unfolds. Memories press against each other. Hopes grind slowly against doubt. Old fears shift, unnoticed in the background. And sometimes, without warning, something slips, a decision, a realization, letting go, our own slow earthquakes, our own silent movements. As you rest now, let the quiet of Cascadia remind you, silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. Sometimes it means everything is done, just on a different schedule, just in a deeper key, just out of reach, but not out of meaning. And so you listen to the land beneath you, and to the inner landscape that mirrors it. You don't need to rush to understand, just to listen, because even the earth, in all its power, chooses to whisper first. There is snow on the mountain, thick, white, soft. It quiets the wind. It hushes the trees. It makes even birdsong feel like an interruption. And deep beneath that snow, beneath stone that has seen 1,000 winters, beneath layers of ash in cooling time, something breathes, not like lungs, not like anything human, but it is breathing nonetheless. This is the sleep of a volcano, and all across Earth, these sleeping fires lie beneath cities, forests, oceans, and myth, each one a story, paused mid-sentence, each one a breath, held a little longer. The language of heat to understand a volcano is to understand patience. Inside the earth, heat moves slowly from core to mantle, from mantle to crust, like honey poured through sand. That heat is relentless. It does not rise quickly, but it builds. It finds gaps, weak spots, faults. It pushes upward. Minerals melt, forming magma, a blend of rock and gas. It's ancient and new at once. But the magma doesn't always reach the surface. It pools, waits, thickens, crystallizes. It watches time pass, and in doing so, it becomes memory. Volcanoes are not just explosions. They are records. A cooled lava flow tells us how fast it moved. The shape of a caldera tells us how large the collapse was. The chemistry of ash tells us what mixed in the furnace below, and some volcanoes do not erupt for thousands of years. People build villages on their slopes. Towns grow. Generations pass, and still the mountain watches. Kanda waits. The falls, Peace Mount, Fuji, Mount Rainier, Tide, Areno, Merapi, all sleeping, all watching. These are stratovolcanoes, steep, layered towers built from past eruptions. Each layer a reminder of when the mountain breathed fire. And yet today, it looks serene, covered in snow, crowned with mist, photographed by tourists. But they are alive. Their chambers are not empty. Their magma has not cooled. They are not extinct, just quiet. And quiet is not the same as safe. There are sensors now, tilt meters, infrasound microphones, seismic arrays, gas sniffers. We can see a volcano shift by centimeters. We can hear it hum. We can taste the sulfur in its breath. When a volcano stirs, it often does so gently at first tiny earthquakes begin. Gas emissions increase. The ground swells slightly to the untrained eye. Nothing has changed, but inside, the chamber is becoming crowded. Pressure is building, like steam in a sealed kettle. Something will give, and when it does, the mountain will speak. The dream of fire volcanoes shape planets. They create continents, they fertilize soil. They heat oceans. Without volcanoes, Earth would be lifeless and flat. They are not just destroyers. They are creators, even in their sleep. They change the world. Beneath Iceland, magma flows close to the surface. Volcanoes erupt often, reshaping the land. But it's the silence between eruptions that tells the deeper story. A slow accumulation, a rising tide of molten memory, one that eventually carves new ground for moss, for rivers, for humans to walk again in the Galapagos. Volcanoes sleep for centuries, then wake with a single exhale, forming new land that smells of sulfur and rebirth. On Mars, Olympus, Mons stands asleep, the tallest volcano in the solar system. Its last eruption. Millions of years ago. Still, it waits. Still, it watches. The universe is full of sleeping fire. Where ice meets flame, one of the strangest things about volcanoes is how often they wear snow like a crown. In Alaska, in Kamchatka, Antarctica, volcanoes sleep under glaciers, and when they stir, they do not only wake the fire, they wake the water. A sudden burst of heat melts centuries of ice in minutes. Floods roar from mountaintops, rocks become rivers. It's called a J-Kulout, an Icelandic word for a glacial outburst flood. In these moments, you see the contradiction of volcanoes. They are slow, but when they wake, they are immediate. In 2010, a volcano named Eyjafjallajökull erupted beneath an Icelandic glacier. The eruption was small by geological standards, but the ash cloud grounded plains across Europe for weeks. Why? Because ash from a glaciated volcano is sharp, glass-like. It floats high and spreads far. It can stop an engine, one sleeping fire. And the sky itself paused. Not every eruption is grand. Some just rearrange the world quietly. the waiting mountains people, live near volcanoes, not in spite of the danger, but because of the gifts. Volcanic soil is rich. Rivers flow from snowmelt. Minerals rise with the magma. There is beauty, too. Volcanoes curve against the sunset. Hot springs near fault lines. The quiet majesty of scale. And so we build cities like Naples, Quito, Arequipa, Kagoshima, Popayan, all lie in the shadows of mountains that once screamed with fire and may again. But between the fires, life continues, and that's the strange grace of it. The volcano sleeps, and so do we. We plant rice on its slopes. We light candles in hillside churches. We drive winding roads, not knowing how the ground beneath us once boiled. We live with the fire. And sometimes we forget it's there, but the mountain remembers, not with fear, not with vengeance, just with pressure, just with time. Listening to Fire Modern. Volcanology is about patience. Scientists climb into craters with gas, masks, and notebooks. They install seismic nodes in lava tubes. They listen to frequencies too low for human ears. They're not looking for signs of doom. They're looking for patterns. Volcanoes, for all their mystery, are not unpredictable. They speak softly, consistently, in rhythm. And the better we listen, the more time we have to move, to warn, to understand. Inside the chamber, when magma rises, it doesn't always explode. Sometimes it fills an old chamber, stretching the walls, creating a dome. Lifting the surface, the earth becomes a balloon. In places like Yellowstone, this uplift is measurable centimeters per year, quiet but persistent. Other times, magma comes with gas, and gas makes it violent carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, water vapor under pressure, like shaking a bottle of soda beneath a mountain. Eventually, it opens, and what comes out isn't just lava, it's history, geology, heat, shape, sound, sleep as transformation, even in sleep. A volcano changes, minerals crystallize, escape slowly, pressure redistributes. A volcano is always adjusting, even if its surface stays still. Just like us, when we sleep, our cells repair, our memories consolidate. Our hearts slow, but our dreams begin, and in dreams there is fire, not of destruction, but of change. We shed old thoughts, we rebuild belief. We wake different than before. So do volcanoes. Their slumber is not static. It is becoming as you drift now. Imagine a mountain under stars, its peak covered in snow, its roots warmed by ancient heat. It does not rush, it does not announce itself, but inside it remembers every eruption, every rain, every footstep that has touched its slope. It is alive. Even now, even here. And so are you, so are you. It begins with darkness, not just the absence of light, but the kind of heavy dusk that presses on your skin, humid, thick, alive. Clouds piled over the horizon like waves. Then, a flicker. White light, silent at first, dances behind the curtain. A vapor. Then another. And another, in most places on Earth. This would mark the start of a storm. But in this place, on the banks of Lake Maracaibo, in Venezuela, it is just nightfall. The lightning begins. And it does not stop. The cathedral of storms, this is the Catatumbo lightning. A storm that does not wander, does not fade, does not pass. It lives here, in this corner of the world, like a permanent flame in the sky. On average, the lightning flashes 260 nights per year, okay? Up to 10 hours a night, and as many as 280 times per hour. You could set a clock to its rhythm, okay? And many once did. Before GPS, sailors used it as a beacon, a lighthouse made not of stone, but of sky. Locals call it Relampago del Catatumbo. It is not feared, it is honored, because to witness it is to feel something ancient. The lightning does not strike randomly, it dances within clouds, sheets of electricity that stitch the night together. And always, always in silence first, because light travels faster than sound. The thunder comes later, rolling across the mangroves, low and slow, like a drum remembering a war it never fought. Why? Here, scientists have studied this storm for decades. They measure it, map it, simulate it, and yet it remains a mystery wrapped in clarity. Why here? Why always? The answer lies in geography, in the shape of land, water, and wind. Lake Maracaibo is ringed by mountains. It creates a perfect basin for warm, moist air to gather. During the day, the sun heats the water. Evaporation thickens the air. And at night, cool air from the Andes slides down like a slow river. The meeting of the two, hot and cold, dry and wet, sparks convection. That's the technical term. But what it means is the sky turns inside out and lightning is born. It is not a single storm. It is a system, a rhythm, a breathing pattern of the earth. Other storms make noise. This one makes a pulse. And if you could listen from space, you'd hear it. A whisper of electricity at the edge of the world. Lightning. Defined lightning is not just a bolt, okay? It is a process. It begins when charges build inside a cloud. Tiny particles, size, dust, water collide. They exchange electrons. Soon, the top of the cloud becomes positively charged, the bottom negatively. This imbalance reaches out, seeking balance. It finds the earth, or another cloud, or itself. And when the channel completes, a current flows. But that current is brief, milliseconds. So fast, you don't see the beginning. It's the bright return stroke, the flash. But inside that flash is 100 smaller steps, leaders, streamers, strokes, returns. Each bolt is a path burned by imbalance, and yet it creates balance again. That's the paradox of lightning. It is violent, but it brings equilibrium. The thunder that follows of lightning is the flash. Thunder is the breath. It happens because the bolt heats the air around it. 230 degrees Celsius, 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. That sudden heat causes a shock wave. Air expands faster than sound itself. It's burst. Then it ripples outward, a sound that starts sharp, then rolls into a deep echo. Thunder tells you where the lightning was. It is a shadow of fire written in pressure, and it always arrives late. That delay tells you how far away the storm is. Count the seconds between flash and boom. Divide by 5. Each second is a kilometer. Each one a reminder. You are watching energy travel. Electric memory, the Catatumbo lightning, has burned itself into poetry, into flags, into the DNA of the region. Fishermen speak of it as a companion. Children grow up beneath it, learning to sleep, with light in their eyes. And satellites track it now, from orbit. It's one of Earth's most consistent electrical phenomena. But even this storm is changing. Climate shifts, humidity patterns alter, temperatures swing, and in 2010, for a brief stretch of days, it stopped. No lightning, no sky fire, no pulse. It was as if the storm had taken a breath. Then it returned, not with violence, but with rhythm, like a heart that skipped and remembered how to beat. The silence between bolts. To study a storm like this is not to chase chaos. It is to sit with pattern. There is something deeply meditative about watching lightning from a distance. The predictability, the delay, the way it repeats in that pattern is calm. In that delay is silence. And in that silence, you can feel the earth remembering itself. Storms don't erase the land. Shape it. Carve rivers, move air, awaken forests. And when the storm ends, the roots drink deeper. Storms that never touch. Ground. Some lightning never strikes the earth. It dances between clouds, or loops back into the sky, and above certain storms. High in the mesosphere, red sprites appear like jellyfish made of electricity. They last only milliseconds, but satellites see them. We once thought lightning was only below the clouds. Now, we know it reaches to space. It's not just a downward thing. It's a conversation between earth and sky, between atmosphere and vacuum, between silence and sound. Your place in the pattern, you, too, are electric. Your heart beats from tiny shocks. Your brain fires across synapses with ions. Your muscles flex with current. You are a walking storm, controlled and soft, but electric nonetheless. So when you watch lightning, you're not separate. You're witnessing something that happens in you on a different scale. A reminder that energy doesn't just move. Key connects dot from storm to soil, from neuron to thought, from cloud to silence. A long night of light the Catatumbo. Lightning will flicker again tonight. It will begin as it always does, quietly, one flash, then another. Then the rhythm returns. Somewhere, a child will fall asleep under its glow. A scientist will record the hour. A fisherman will steer by the flashes, and high above, a satellite will blink its acknowledgement. Yes, the storm is alive again. It does not rage. It does not destroy. It just is. And in that consistency, there is peace. Tonight, as you drift, know that somewhere in the world, lightning is writing slow poetry in the sky, not to scare, not to warn, but to remind you that energy can be beautiful, that chaos can have rhythm, that storms can sing, and that not all fire burns. Some fire glows in silence. It begins with a breath, shallow, sharp, drawn through air so cold it seems empty, but it is not empty. It is heavy with ancient moisture, molecules older than empires, older than writing, older than fire. This is not just cold. This is the kind of cold that shapes mountains, grinds stone into flour, and captures the size of the past in perfect stillness. You are in Antarctica now, or Greenland, or atop a glacier that forgets where the land ends and where time begins. The memory inside. Ice to most, a glacier is a river of frozen water, but to science, it is a library. Each layer of ice is a page, and those pages go back hundreds of thousands of years. When snow falls in a place so cold that it never melts, it compacts under its own weight. Year after year, century after century, each snowfall traps tiny air bubbles, and those bubbles trap the TMOs, PHERES, not just air, but the exact chemical makeup of the world, as it was when that snow fell. It is the closest thing we have to time travel. Scientists drill deep into the ice. They extract cores, tall cylinders of frozen memory, cut through millennia like tree rings. By reading the layers, they know when volcanoes erupted, when the sun grew quiet, when oceans changed their breath. They know, too, when humans began to burn forests, smelt metals, burn coal. Even before we wrote history, we were writing it in ice. How glaciers move without sound. Glaciers do not sit still. They flow down slowly, YES, inches per year, or meters, depending on steepness and heat. But flow they do, dragging stone, reshaping valleys, smoothing mountains into rounded giants. The land beneath is polished like bone, and sometimes the glacier creaks, cracks, releases the pressure of centuries with a low moan. But mostly, it is quiet, movement without noise, time passing without witness. If you sit long enough near a glacier, you may feel it, not see it, feel it, a hum, a pressure, whisper in your bones that something enormous is awake. The blue inside the white-most ice looks white. That's how snow begins, fluffy, reflective, full of air. But deep glacier ice is blue, not like a summer sky, but like a bruise in time. It happens because the deeper the ice, the less air it holds, and the more pressure it feels, the more it transforms. Light passes through it differently. All colors scatter except blue. What remains is a cold glow, like frozen sapphire, buried under miles of silence. If you could walk inside a glacier, you'd see walls of this blue. It would feel like being inside a frozen lung, as if the earth itself were holding its breath. The creatures that sleep in ICU might think nothing can live here. Quote, life always finds a way. In the cracks, in the thin meltwater veins, in the dark bacteria survive. Frozen, yes, but not dead. Some are tens of thousands of years old. When thawed, they wake. They remember how to divide, how to eat, how to move. They are reminders that even the coldest parts of Earth are not truly empty. They are merely resting. The cold that reaches space, the cold of deep ice, is not the coldest place on Earth. That title belongs to space, but the connection is close. In Antarctica's dome, Fuji, temperatures reach 93 degrees Celsius. So cold that breath falls like snow. So cold that steel becomes brittle. Yet, satellites above Earth endure even colder. In the vacuum of space, there is no air to carry warmth. It's only radiation. The James Webb Telescope orbits in that cold. Its mirrors, coated in gold, face away from the sun, shielded, frozen, silent. It was built to study ancient galaxies. But in many ways, it understands glaciers better than we do. Both are made to wait, to store information in silence, until we learn to read it. The glacier that cracked in 2002. The Larsen B ice shelf, a massive glacier in Antarctica, collapsed, not over centuries, not over decades, but in 35 days. A chunk of ice, the size of Rhode Island, shattered into the sea. A wall of history turned to floating shards. Why? Because warming air reached the surface, and meltwater, small, at first, slipped into cracks. That water froze, expanded, and forced the ice apart from the inside. It wasn't an explosion. It was pressure released, memory lost, like a book burned, without flame. The sound of melting glaciers don't always melt in silence. Sometimes they roar when ice calves, when a wall of glacier breaks into the ocean. The sound is like thunder underwater. Waves rise, air trembles, birds scatter. But far from the edge, the melt is gentle. Drops of water trickle down the base. They form rivers beneath the glacier, hidden and cold, and where the glacier meets rock. That water acts as lubricant. The glacier slides faster. In this way, melting accelerates movement, and movement accelerates loss. It is a feedback loop with no voice, until it's too late. What the ice is telling, using Greenland. Scientists have drilled to the Eemian layer, a time 120,000 years ago, when Earth was warm, like today. Back then, sea levels were 6 to 9 meters higher. That ice shows us what may come. It holds ancient dust, pollen, even radioactive ash from early human industry. It shows methane spikes. Carbon dioxide rises. It records every sigh we have exhaled into the atmosphere, and it does not lie. Glaciers are not prophets. They are mirrors. They show us who we've been and hint at who we may become. The ice on other worlds' Earth is not the only place with glaciers. On Mars, it's hidden under dust. Lie old ice sheets. On Europa, Jupiter's moon, an ice shell hides an ocean deeper than Earth's. On Enceladus, Saturn's moon, ice cracks release geysers into space, shooting water vapors so high it forms a halo. These are not dead places. They are sleeping, and beneath their cold silence, life may wait, just as it does beneath Antarctica. The search for aliens does not begin with stars. It begins with ice. You, in the ice, think of your breath. Right now, in, out. Each breath contains molecules exhaled by those before you, centuries before. Some atoms in your body were once frozen in glaciers, trapped, released. You are not separate from the cold. You are part of the cycle, and one day, your breath may fall as snow, layer, compress, freeze, and maybe, thousands of years from now, Someone will drill deep and find you. Not your body, but your breath, your moment, your trace, frozen in blue. The beauty of waiting glaciers teach us patience. They are slow, precise, massive. They show that change need not be loud, that power can be gradual, that memory can be stored not in words, but in ice. So tonight, as you drift, imagine lying beneath the glacier, warm, safe, preserved. Outside, the world moves. But here, in this pocket of cold, you are untouched. You are part of the record now, and silence is your story. Your story. Close your eyes. Now imagine the sea. The surface is calm, perhaps, a mirror under moonlight. A place for boats and birds and waves that curl like sleepy fingers. But this is not the ocean. Not really. It is only the top. A lid, a soft whisper of what lies below. Beneath that surface, down where sunlight forgets to reach, begins a realm older than memory, more vast than land, and less known than the stars above it. This is the deep sea, the forgotten sea. A world that lives without our eyes, without our warmth, without our understanding. The true depth of the ocean. You may think of the ocean as one connected thing, but it is layered, structured, stratified, like a sleeping dream. The top layer, the epopelagic zone, extends just 200 meters deep. It is where all sunlight plays, where most fish live, where humans swim and float and dive. But below that, the twilight zone in blue, almost empty. And further down, the midnight zone, pure, dark, no light, no color, only pressure and silence. Still, deeper, the abyss, 4,000 meters down. Flat plains of cold silt, temperatures near freezing. Creatures that have never seen the sky. And deeper still, the Hadal zone, named for Hades. Trenches so deep that if Mount Everest were placed inside, its summit would still be underwater. No sunlight has ever touched this place. It is alien, but it is Earth. Currents that move the world. The surface winds may blow. Storms may rage, but the ocean's true engine lies below. A conveyor belt of water, called the thermaline circulation, moves heat, salt, and memory across the globe. It begins in the North Atlantic, where cold air chills surface water. That water becomes dense. It sinks. It begins a journey that lasts 1,000 years. As it moves, it touches the seafloor, slides beneath continents. It hugs volcanic ridges. It carries nutrients, oxygen, in the size of dead plankton. It re-emerges near Antarctica, then travels through the Indian and Pacific Oceans, finally rising again to the surface centuries later. It is a pulse, a breath, the ocean's slow heartbeat, and when it slows, weather shifts, rain patterns change, heat accumulates. The forgotten sea does not forget us. Life and darkness. You may wonder what could live in such a place, without light, without warmth, without color, and yet it lives. More species live in the deep sea than in all tropical rainforests combined. There are hatchetfish, wet sides so reflective they vanish. There are gulper eels with jaws that unhinge like nightmares. There are anglerfish who carry glowing lures made not by their own bodies, but by bacteria that feed off them in return. Here in the black bioluminescence is the norm. Not rare, not magical, but essential. It is light without fire, fire without heat, communication through glow. Some flash to find mates, some pulse to lure prey, some flicker to confuse predators. In a world without sight, light becomes language. The sound of the deep. There is no silence in the ocean. Even in the darkest depths, sound travels far. Whales sing across thousands of miles. Seismic rumbles whisper through the seafloor. The crunch of shrimp, the click of squid, the low hum of Earth's movement. Sound moves faster in water than in air. It bends with pressure. It bounces off thermoclines. It echoes in places where light will never go. Navies know this. Submarines, hide in these layers, where sound curves away and disappears. But fish know it too. Some species speak, grunt, click, rattle their bones, a chorus that never reaches the surface, a concert of the invisible. The mountains we cannot see. The tallest mountain on earth is not Everest. It is Mauna Kea, a Hawaiian volcano rising over 10,000 meters, most of it underwater, and the longest mountain chain. Not the Andes, not the Rockies. Is the mid-ocean ridge, a chain of underwater mountains that wraps around the globe like a scar, stretching over 65,000 kilometers. It is where tectonic plates pull apart, where magma seeps through cracks, where new Earth is born. Every day, these ridges are not empty. They are lined with hydrothermal vents, geysers of boiling water rich in minerals, sulfur, and heat. And around these vents, life gathers. Giant tube worms, crabs with fur, clams with no mouths. They do not need sunlight. They feed on chemicals. They form ecosystems older than forests, proof that life does not require light, only energy. The ocean remembers. The ocean has no bones, but it holds fossils, sunken ships, cities swallowed by tsunamis, cores of sediment that show every shift in Earth's climate, layers of silt, hold, pollen, ash, microplastics, are the echoes of industry, traces of extinction, and even deeper. Buried in anoxic mud, lie bacteria so slow they divide once every 100 years. The ocean is not just alive, it is haunted by all that came before and all that we leave behind. The pressure of silence at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. The pressure is over 1,000 times greater than sea level. It's like holding 50 jumbo jets on your head. Most things collapse. Steel implodes. Air is squeezed to nothing. And yet, life exists. Not large, not loud, but present. AMPHIPODS. Tiny fish. Microbes that eat rock. They have no bones, no lungs, only membranes shaped by darkness. We once believed nothing could live there, but we were wrong. Life does not fear pressure, only we do. The trash in the abyss. Humans do not live in the deep, but we have reached it in 2018. Scientists found a plastic bag 7 miles deep in the Mariana Trench. They found microfibers, metal scraps, radioactive elements from bomb tests. The ocean is our mirror, and it reflects more than beauty. Even here, in this sacred quiet, our fingerprints remain, not footprints. Fingerprints, because we have never walked here, but we have touched it. The unseen majority, 70% of Earth, is covered in water, but more than 80% of the ocean remains unmapped, unexplored, unknown. There are mountains we've never seen, species we've never named, ecosystems we've never dreamed. We've sent more people to the moon than to the bottom of the ocean. Our satellites can map Mars in detail, but cannot peer through murky depths just beneath our feet. Why? Because light does not travel here, because pressure crushes cameras, because sonar is slow and curiosity is impatient. But still, we send probes, we lower ROVs, we build vessels like Alvin and Trieste, and they return with stories, with creatures that glow, with worms that live in boiling sulfur, silence that screams with potential, the sea as a sky. What if, when we look for aliens, we are looking in the wrong direction, not up, but down? What if the deep sea is our alien world, a place with different rules, where sight is useless, where gravity is heavy, where life is strange and unrecognizable? We do not need rockets to visit alien realms. We need courage and ballast. In time, you, floating there, now drift again. Imagine you are suspended in the deep sea. Neutral buoyancy, no direction, only pressure and patience and dark. Above you, the weight of oceans. Below you, the abyss Around you, faint glows, a flicker, a flash, a light that says, I am here, not loud, not warm, but present. You are not afraid because this darkness feels like a lullaby. You are cradled in the quiet of the forgotten sea. And even though no one sees you, the ocean remembers. Close your eyes again. The stars are far now. You're drifting beyond Earth, past the gravity that once cradled your oceans. The moon fades behind you. Mars, red and dry, glows in the distance. Then Jupiter looms, massive, striped, turning faster than any planet should, and around it moons. Dozens of them, tiny worlds of rock and ice. You might ignore them, except for one, Europa, white, cracked, still, but this is not a dead world. Beneath that surface, beneath the ice that gleams like glass, is water, liquid, salty, moving in. Ocean. And where there's water, there is possibility. Oceans without sunlight. We once believed Earth was the only blue world. It's the only planet with oceans. The only planet where liquid water endured. But now we know better. Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, Enceladus, Titan, all are moons. All are covered in ice. And beneath that ice, they may hold more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. These are not puddles, not lakes. They are oceans, hundreds of kilometers deep, black, pressurized, and ancient. They exist not because of sunlight, but because of tidal heating. How to light a fire without flame? Europa orbits Jupiter, and like a child, pulled in every direction. It is stretched and squeezed as it spins. This constant tug-of-war creates friction inside Europa's rocky core. Friction creates heat. Heat melts ice. Water remains liquid. A world without sunlight becomes a world with oceans. On Enceladus, moon of Saturn, this heat is so intense that geysers erupt from its poles, spraying water vapor and salt into space. The Cassini spacecraft flew through these plumes. It tasted them. It found organic compounds, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, the building blocks of life, in a moon no wider than Arizona. There is warmth, water, and chemistry. That is not coincidence. That is a recipe. The ice shells on these frozen moons. Ice is not just a cover. It is a shell, an armor, a prison. Europa's ice is thick, maybe 20 kilometers. It cracks. It shifts. It drifts like tectonic plates. Some areas show chaos terrain. Regions where the ice broke apart, floated, and refroze in jumbled patterns. These are signs of motion beneath. Signs of currents. Signs of tides. Signs of a living ocean. And on Titan, Saturn's largest moon, the surface is ice, but beneath that lies a salty sea, perhaps more stable than Earth's own crust. The ice on these moons creaks. It shifts. It breathes. Slowly. We cannot hear it, but it moves. And in that motion, there is life of a different kind. What could live there? It's the question that keeps astronomers awake. It's that haunts the dreams of planetary scientists. What swims in Europa's ocean? What hides in Enceladus's vents? We do not know. What we can guess. If life began on Earth at the bottom of the sea in the blackness of hydrothermal vents, why not here? Life does not need sunlight, only warmth, water, and chemistry. Then these moons are not dead. They are merely unseen. Perhaps there are extremophiles, like those in our own deep sea. Bacteria that feed on hydrogen sulfide. Archaea that digest rock. Two worm-like creatures clustered around underwater heat. Or perhaps something stranger, something that evolved in total silence, without eyes, without fear of light, without knowing that stars exist. A biosphere in complete darkness, living not for seasons, but for currents, existing not for survival, but because they can. Listening for life, we have never drilled into Europa. We have never landed on Enceladus, but we listen. We watch the way their surfaces move. We measured their gravity. We scanned for magnetic fields. And in those measurements, there are whispers. Europa has a magnetic signature that shifts with Jupiter's field. It behaves like a planet with a conducting layer. An ocean, Enceladus's plumes, contains salty grains, simple organics, complex molecules. Titan's surface glows in infrared. Its atmosphere is thick with nitrogen. Its rivers run not with water, but with methane and ethane still beneath its ice. There is a global sea. These are not just rocks. They are laboratories, and maybe they are cradles. The silence of time. These oceans are old, perhaps older than Earth's first land. They have existed for billions of years, untouched, undisturbed, unseen. Whatever lies there, anything does, has had time. So much time. Time to evolve, time to diversify, to adapt, but also time to vanish. Perhaps life once flourished in these oceans, and then died. Perhaps the chemical fire flickered and failed. Perhaps the spark never came. Or perhaps, right now, something stirs in that dark, a soft twitch, a glow, a ripple, a presence without name. We send our eyes. We are not there yet. We are coming. NASA's Europa Clipper launches soon. It will orbit Jupiter and fly past Europa again and again. It will scan the ice, measure the gravity, map the cracks, snip the surface for molecules tossed up from the ocean below. No drill, no landing, but a beginning. ESA's JUICE mission. Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer will follow. Together, they will read the ice like a letter from a forgotten sibling. And after that, perhaps, a lander, a drill, a submarine. Not soon, but someday. We are patient, so's the ocean. Why this matters, you might ask. Why does this matter? Why study distant moons? Why dream of dark oceans? 'Cause they show us that Earth is not special, that water is not rare, that heat can come without fire, that life might exist where we never thought to look. Because they remind us that the universe is not only stars and void, but also places that feel like home. And because if life exists there, even the simplest life, then it exists twice. And if it exists twice, it exists everywhere. The quiet happy hour floating now above Europa's frozen crust, below kilometers of ice. Then a sea, not warm, not welcoming, but alive. You can't see it, but you know it's there. You feel the pull of gravity, the slow churn of water, the heat that rises without light. Somewhere below, a vent opens, gas bubbles rise, minerals swirl, a creature drifts by, or maybe just a shadow. Either way, the ocean continues, silent, faithful, waiting, and above it, you, cradled in starlight, remember that warmth comes not only from suns, but from movement, friction, and time. Before the first leaf, before the first breath, Earth had an atmosphere that did not welcome life. But rocks released gas, oceans boiled and calmed, and winds began to shape the skin of the planet. Tonight, we drift through the air that built us and ask what breathes when we're not listening. Close your eyes again, let the stars dim, and let your mind fall softly toward Earth, not the Earth of today, but Earth as it once was when skies were not blue, when the sun rose on oceans of fire and the air itself was not for lungs. Breath from stone, you drift downward through clouds that have not yet learned to rain. Below, the surface burns, a writhing crust of black rock and lava. Simmering beneath the sky, choked with gas, there is no oxygen, no ozone, no scent of flowers or soil. This is the Hadean Earth, 4.5 billion years ago, and yet it is here that breath begins, not from trees, not from animals, but from rock, volcanoes, belch, carbon dioxide, water vapor, nitrogen, ammonia, methane. Each eruption reshapes the sky. Each plume builds an invisible ocean of air. This is Earth's first atmosphere, thick, suffocating, heavy with heat. You can't breathe it, but the planet can. And that is enough. The winds before wind, without trees, without grass, without anything to bend or rustle. The wind is silent, but it is not still. Solar heat stirs the upper layers. Hot air rises. Cool air falls. Pressure builds. Motion begins. Even now, on rocky, barren worlds like Mars, winds move dust across empty plains. Wind is not a product of life. It is a product of imbalance. Heat in one place, cold in another, and air between them, seeking peace. That's all wind is, a search for equilibrium. You drift through these early gusts. They do not howl, they do not sing, but they shape mountains. They cool lava. They carry vapor from sea to sky, and slowly they prepare the stage for breath. When oceans learn to speak, the air cools, water condenses. Rain begins not as a gentle drizzle, but as a storm that lasts for centuries. Earth's atmosphere is changing. The carbon dioxide dissolves, the methane reacts, and oceans newly formed, still hot and restless, begin to inhale. They pull gases from the sky. They trap them in currents. They bury them in the sea floor. This is the beginning of climate, not weather. Weather is short-term, a day of sun, an afternoon of rain. Climate is the memory of weather, the shape of decades. The rhythm of centuries in Earth's memory is beginning to form. The long breath of cyanobacterial time passes. You drift forward millions of years to a moment of quiet revolution. Somewhere in the shallows of a warm lagoon, tiny creatures float. They have no eyes, no bones, no minds, but they are powerful. cyanobacteria, blue-green, ancient, patient. They take in carbon dioxide and sunlight and release oxygen. For them, this is survival. For it is transformation. Oxygen builds, slowly, relentlessly. At first, it rusts the iron in the oceans. Then, it accumulates in the sky. A great oxygenation event begins, and suddenly, the air becomes something new, toxic to old life, essential to the future. The sky is no longer silent. It breathes, the invention of weather now, with oceans in motion, an atmosphere that remembers, and sunlight to stir the surface. Weather awakens, clouds form, storms roll, thunder cracks across primitive continents. Weather's not chaos, it is a system, a heartbeat. The sun heats the tropics, the poles remain cold. Air moves, water evaporates, ice forms, the jet stream stirs. Monsoons arrive, snow begins to fall. You float above this young, wild planet, a place where climate and biology begin to dance, and every puff of wind is a step in that dance. Atmospheres elsewhere now lift upward, higher, away from Earth. Let us compare Venus, similar in size to Earth, but cursed by runaway carbon dioxide. Its sky is thick, sulfurous, burning hot enough to melt lead. It once had water. Now it has clouds of acid, a cautionary tale in the sky. Mars, cold and dry, with an atmosphere too thin to hold warmth. But dust storms still roam. Winds still whisper across frozen plains, and Titan Saturn's moon thick with nitrogen, its sky orange and heavy, raining liquid methane. Each world breathes in its own way. Each has winds, clouds, pressure, but only Earth has a sky shaped by life. The modern sky you return to now, to Earth today. Breathe in, feel the air. It is mostly nitrogen, 78%, oxygen, 21%, argon, carbon dioxide, and trace gases, just the rest. Invisible, but essential. You live in the troposphere. The bottom layer is only 12 kilometers thick, but home to every cloud, every storm, every bird. Above that, the stratosphere, where jets fly and ozone protects. Then the mesosphere, then the thermosphere, then space, layers of breath, layers of memory, and all of it in motion. The air remembers air is not static. Every molecule you breathe was once elsewhere. The nitrogen in your lungs may have been exhaled by a dinosaur. The oxygen released by a tree before you were born. Air carries ash from volcanoes, salt from oceans, pollen from flowers, dust from deserts. It flows across continents. It never stops moving. And in that movement, it stores stories. Stories of fires, of wars, of seasons. And one day, the air will remember you. The silence above now float higher above the clouds. Listen, the higher you go, the quieter the wind becomes. Less air, less sound, but the silence is not empty. It is filled with ultraviolet light, with cosmic rays, with the faint drag of atmosphere on satellites. The sky is not a ceiling, it is a gradient, a thinning, and even the International Space Station, so far above, still dips its toes in the breath of Earth. When breath fails you, drift forward in time, centuries ahead. The sky may change again. More carbon, less ice, stronger storms, weaker seasons. The balance of oxygen and heat may shift. We may forget how delicate our breath is, but the sky will not forget. It will adapt, reform, rebalance, with or without us, because the sky is not a gift. It is a process that never stops. The wind at night too float gently now, just above your sleeping body. A soft breeze moves the curtain. The trees sway. The stars blink. Even here, rest. The atmosphere is alive. It cools your skin, carries scent, smooth sound. The wind at night is slower, but still persistent. It rocks the world to sleep, and you, inhaling quietly, to become part of it. You are not separate from the sky. You are shaped by it. Final breath of the chapter, this air. The one in your lungs was born from volcanoes, purified by bacteria, refined by forests, shaped by time. It is older than your name, it's wiser than your memories, and as long as Earth turns, it will breathe, whether anyone is here to feel it or not. So, sleep now, beneath a sky that never stops moving, a sky that remembers, a sky that breathes, a sky that built the very life that dreams beneath it. Lie still now. Outside your window, a storm has not yet begun, but something is moving above the clouds. Something ancient, electric. You cannot see it yet, but you can feel it. In your fingertips, in the hairs on your arm, in the stillness before. Sound, this is not a beginning. This is a charge waiting to be released. The first, crackle it, return again to a young Earth. Not as young as lava seas, okay? Not yet home to humans. The air is thicker now. Oceans have found their shapes. Land has risen. The sky is active. Rain falls. Clouds boil. And then suddenly a flash. It does not strike a tree. There are no trees yet. It does not scare a mammal. There are no mammals. But it strikes. From sky to ground. From cloud to cloud. The first lightning bolt. Long before language. Long before. Fire, dot. And yet, this is fire from the sky. Lightning, even now. It's one of nature's oldest alphabets, and it hasn't changed. What is lightning? Really? It is not magic. It is not a punishment. It is not a message from God. It is a discharge. But that word feels too empty, doesn't it? Let's slow it down. Imagine a cloud. Tall, cold, heavy. Inside, water droplets collide. Ice crystals brush past each other. Tiny grains of hail tumble, and, with every collision, a charge is born. The cloud becomes a battery. Positive charge builds at the top. Negative charge pulls at the base. The earth below responds, rearranging its charges like a polite guest. Shifting furniture, the tension grows, the gap narrows, and then, in less than a blink, the sky tears open. A current leaps through air, 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. tens of thousands of amperes. That is lightning, a rebalancing, a flash of justice between cloud and earth. How the air screams. But lightning is only half the story. What comes next is thunder. When the bolt strikes, it superheats the air. Instantly, violently, the air expands faster than it knows how. It bursts. It slaps itself apart, and that explosion rolls through the sky. Thunder is not a roar. It is not a growl. It is a wave, carrying panic through the air. But you hear it as sound, as rhythm, as a distant drum that says, I was there. The hidden flash knot, all lightning strikes downward. Some flashes stay hidden. Cloud to cloud, lightning a conversation in the sky. It jumps across miles of cloud banks, never touching the ground. Sheet lightning diffused behind layers of mist, like a lantern behind curtains, and then rarely upward. It's lightning. Yes, lightning that leaps from the ground up into the sky, especially from tall buildings. Mountaintops, radio towers, even humans can trigger it. Unknowingly, the sky is always listening for the tiniest whisper of imbalance, and when it hears it, it speaks back in light. Sprites, jets, and elves you drift higher now, above the storm, into the mesosphere, where the strange lightning lives. You see a red, jellyfish-like tendril erupting upward, a sprite, not myth, but plasma. Above that, a blue cone pulses briefly, a blue jet, and all around, a ring of invisible energy flares. In ultraviolet, in LV, these are transient, luminous events. Lightning's secret vocabulary, too brief to photograph easily, it's too high to hear, but they are real, and they remind us that the sky speaks in many dialects. Most of them we never notice. How often does it happen? Lightning doesn't wait for big storms. It doesn't need drama. It is happening right now, somewhere on Earth. In fact, over 40 to 50 lightning bolts strike the ground every second. That's more than 4 million per day. Somewhere. See, read? This, a bolt is tearing through a tree. Another is igniting a field. Another is dancing harmlessly across water. The planet is alive with sparks. The sky is never truly quiet. Lightning's oldest witnesses, before humans knew how to write, they told stories about lightning. It was a god's spear, a dragon's breath, a warning dot to the early Greeks. Zeus hurled lightning as a weapon to the Norse. Thor swung Malala near and sparked the sky. Two West African legends. Shango ruled the thunder, to Hindu texts. Indra rode the storm. Haze, thunderbolt, called Vajra. Each culture heard the voice of the sky and gave it a name, because lightning is too loud to ignore, too fast to forget. Even when we understand it, we still flinch, because the body remembers what the sky can do. The fire starter lightning is a builder and a destroyer. It ignites over 24,000 wildfires each year in grasslands, in forests, on mountainsides. But ETIMES, fire is not destruction, it is transformation. Some ecosystems need it. Pine cones that only open after flame. Plants that regrow with fresh ash. Cycles that depend on heat. Lightning doesn't just burn, it resets, and from the blackened earth, new life often returns stronger. Lightning in a lab can, we create lightning. Yes, in controlled ways. Tesla coils, Van de Graaff generators. Even some everyday photocopiers use static charge and electric arcs. But our artificial lightning is small, short-lived to nature's bolts, stretch kilometers. The longest recorded in 2020 was over 477 miles long. Our sparks are whispers, sky shouts, and yet we keep studying, because even now, the full mechanism of lightning is not fully understood. Each storm is a lesson, each bolt a teacher. What lightning can teach us teaches about pressure, about heat, about imbalance, but it also teaches something stranger, that even silence holds energy. That tension builds in stillness, and when released, That energy travels fast and leaves echoes. You can't catch lightning, but you can listen to what it leaves behind. Burned trees, cracked rocks, a sky that growled and then grew still. These are the skies. Punctuation marks. They tell you where the atmosphere paused and where it began again. Lightning bolt in your blood. Hear something quiet. Your nerves, the ones that let you think. Move. Remember, fire small electrical signals every second, every movement of your finger, every word you think before saying. It's not lightning. It's not in the grand, thundering way, but it's still electricity, still a discharge. The air carries charge. So do you. We are not just shaped by storms. We are made of the same rules, different scale, same song. The end of a storm now, float back down. The storm has passed. The rain has softened. The wind has calmed. You lie in your bed, the sky dim with the last traces of static. Your window is closed, but the air feels cleared, fresh, washed. You remember nothing specific from the storm, but your body does. The slight jump at a distant crack, the count between flash and sound, the way everything feels still just after thunder. This is not fear. It is reverence. The atmosphere has spoken, and now it rests. The silence after there is a kind of peace that only follows a storm, a charged silence, a grateful hush. Lightning is not always destruction. Sometimes it is release, not a threat, dead, but a reminder that pressure needs pathways. That tension, when held too long, finds escape. The sky knows this, so it discharges, briefly, brilliantly, and then it returns to calm, just like you will now. Sleep beneath the storm's memory. Let its light fade from your mind. Let the sky above hold a charge. You are safe, and the thunder has said all it needed to say. You are floating now, weightless, silent. The stars are above you, but they are dim, 'cause your eyes have started to close. You are drifting, not in bed, not in sky, but on water, salt water, blue, but only when lit. Dark now, the ocean, the breath beneath our feet. You breathe air, but where does that air come from? Not forests, it's not rainforests. Despite what they told you, over half of the oxygen you inhale comes from tiny cation plants, plankton, algae, microscopic factories rising and sinking with the sun. They do not speak, they do not walk, but they exhale life. You breathe because they breathe. Each morning, sunlight hits the sea, and deep within, billion silent lungs open. You breathe their memory. Every drop has lived before the ocean is not a place. It is a cycle. A drop of water in your glass was once part of a glacier, then rain, then a tear, then mist, then wave. It may have floated under polar ice, carried a fish, washed a body, risen as fog, and fallen again as monsoon rain in another century. Water forgets shape, but it does not forget motion. The sea is motion, even when it looks still. Every wave you see was shaped by wind, which was shaped by sun, which was shaped by tilt, which was shaped by time. The salty code of the deep Y is the ocean salty. It wasn't always rain fell on land. Rain broke rocks. Rocks released minerals. Rivers carried them to the sea. Over millions of years, salts collected, mostly sodium and chloride. You call it salt, but the ocean doesn't know words, only ions, only chemistry. The sea is not just water. It is a charged memory of every land it touched. You could evaporate the ocean. It would leave behind quintillions of tons of salt, enough to cover every continent in a layer hundreds of feet thick. But it stays dissolved. It stays moving. Salt is memory in mineral form. The deep is cold beneath the waves. Beneath the sunlight, beneath the blue, there is dark. Not black, but dense, cold, silent. And there, water moves, slowly, colder than you've ever felt. just above, freezing, moving at the pace of continents. This is the thermaline circulation. It's a great ocean conveyor belt. It begins near Greenland, where cold, salty water sinks. It travels the world southward, round the tips of Africa, into the Pacific, up toward Alaska. It takes 1,000 years for one drop to complete the cycle. That's older than any empire, older than most languages, and yet it continues. A pulse, a slow heartbeat of Earth, mountains underwater. You think of the ocean as flat, but it is anything but. There are mountains under the sea, taller than Everest. There are valleys deeper than any canyon. The Mariana Trench, nearly 7 miles down. If you dropped Mount Everest into it, its peak would still be a mile. Beneath the surface, down there, no sunlight, but there is life. Fish with mouths like lanterns, worms that eat sulfur, microbes that thrive in boiling vents. No eyes, no color, but still life. The ocean doesn't need permission to host strange things. It always has. The sound of pressure at the surface. Water is light, playful. It dances, but go deeper, and it gets heavy every 10 meters. The pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. At 1,000 meters, you feel the weight of 100 elephants on every square inch. At 3,000 meters, metal bends. At 10,000, titanium weeps. And still, there are creatures down there. Shrimp, octopuses, jellyfish shaped like parachutes. Their bodies are soft, because soft survives pressure. They do not scream, but the ocean speaks through them in their shape, in their glow, in how they vanish the moment light finds them. Tides that remember the moon. Why does the ocean move? Not just wind, not just current, the moon. Its gravity pulls the ocean upward twice a day. The earth rotates, the water stretches, tides rise, as tides fall. The moon does not speak, but the ocean answers, a wave of devotion twice a day for 4 billion years. And the sun, jealous, adds its pull. Spring tides, neap tides. Each coastline has its own rhythm, like a pulse, like a breath, like a body remembering where the moon was last night. The ocean that burned there was a time when the oceans were hot, not warm, hot, more acidic. Less oxygen. Mass extinctions began in the water, not on land. The Permian extinction, 252 million years ago, wiped out over 90% of marine species. The sea turned still, cloudy, toxic. It took millions of years to recover, but it did. And, in doing so, it stored that trauma deep below, in sediments, accused in fossil shells, in chemical signatures. The ocean doesn't forgive. It records the sea in our blood. Why do your tears taste salty? Why does your sweat feel like the sea? 'Cause you are in memory of the ocean. Your blood contains the same salts, the same ions. Your body carries a liquid inheritance. When life began, it began in water. The first cells floated. The first bacteria swam. You are not separate from the sea. Okay? You are a pattern that once breathed in it. And when your heart beats, some part of it remembers tides, storms over open water. The sea is not always gentle. Storms brew above it. Hurricanes, typhoons, cyclones, all born from warm water, all grown by evaporation, all feeding on energy. And yet, when the storm passes, the ocean forgets. Its surface flattens, its color returns, its currents shift slightly, but its pulse remains. The sea absorbs trauma without complaint, but it leaves evidence: tossed ships, washed shorelines, got it, coral reefs. The ocean is not cruel, but it is strong, and strength, left unchecked, can erase coastlines. The future memory: what is the ocean becoming? Warmer, higher, more acidic. Its currents are slowing, its ice is melting, storms are intensifying. But it does not panic. It remembers change. It has survived asteroid strikes, ice ages, and extinction waves. It adapts slowly, too slowly, for us, perhaps. But it has never stopped moving. The sea is not here to rescue us, but it holds the records we need to rescue ourselves. Inside cores of ice, inside sediments, inside ancient coral rings. The answers are there. We only have to listen. Floating. Once more now return, float again. Eyes half closed, thoughts quiet. You are not in bed. You are on water. You are in a drop that has seen everything, been everything. The ocean does not care if you understand it, but if you listen, truly listen, you'll hear its voice, not in words, but in rhythm. The hush of waves, the distant gull, the creak of ships, the click of whales. Sleep in that sound. Float on that memory. The ocean will carry you. It always has. Close your eyes. Forget the walls around you. Forget the blanket. Forget the floor beneath your bed. Let it all dissolve until nothing is holding you. Not even the earth. But you don't fall because something else holds you together. Gravity. The weight of being here. Gravity is not a push. Okay? It is a pull. Everything with mass pulls on everything else. Your body, your pillow, the moon, the sun, each whispering a tiny tug to everything nearby. But only the biggest tugs are loud enough to feel the earth. Huge, ancient, molten, pulls you gently to its center. You don't feel it, but your feet know. Your spine aligns. Your blood settles. Even your dreams drip downward. You are always falling. Here's a secret. You're always falling. Even when you stand still, gravity is not something you sit on, something you surrender to. Without it, your bones would drift apart. Your breath would scatter. Your heart would lose its beat. Gravity gives you shape. It holds your atoms close. Keeps your fluids inside you. You are not resting, okay? You're being held, and everything around you, chairs, mountains, oceans, even clouds, is falling too. But we all fall together. And in that fall, we call it stillness. Your bones remember stars. Why are your bones heavy? Because they contain calcium. And calcium comes from stars, not just any stars, dying stars. Supernova, the explosion of massive suns that forged the elements your skeleton needs. You are not metaphorically stardust. You are literally assembled from atoms forged in ancient suns. Calcium in your spine, iron in your blood, oxygen in your lungs. All once lived in the belly of stars. Gravity pulled them into planets, then into oceans, then into cells, then into you. You are made of collapsed light. Your heart beats with gravity's rhythm. The heart doesn't float. It responds to gravity, to pressure, to the tilt of your body. Stand up and it races. Lie down and it slows. Flip upside down and your body recalibrates. Your arteries, your veins, they're not just pipes. They are soft tunnels engineered to work in a gravitational field. Even your blood isn't pumped equally. Gravity decides what rises and what sinks. This is why your face flushes, why your feet swell, why astronauts return with swollen eyes and hearts that forget how to contract. Your body was never designed for zero-gravity. It needs the ground. Misses the fall. Balance. The gravity compass inside your ears. Tiny crystals float. Microscopic pebbles called otolith. They sit on jelly beds inside your inner ear. And when you tilt your head, gravity nudges them. Your brain feels the shift and interprets your balance. You don't need to think about it. Simply know where down is. Children roll in grass and giggle because the shift feels playful. But it is ancient. It is fundamental. Without those crystals, you would float inside your own skull. Directionless, motionless. The compass would be broken. Gravity, okay, even when invisible, always leaves a trace. Your dreams sink downward in sleep. Gravity works. Your REM cycles. Your twitching eyes. Your relaxed limbs Don't follow patterns shaped by the downward pull of blood, okay? Of lymph, of warmth. Lie flat, and your spine decompresses. Lie on your side, and your heart rests a little differently. Even the temperature of your skin, cooler near the surface, warmer at your core, is governed by convection. Heat rises, cool sinks, and so, even your dreams move in currents. Gravity's shadow in your brain inside your skull. Your brain floats, suspended in cerebrospinal fluid, shielded, buoyant, but still heavy. The average brain weighs about 3 pounds, but in fluid, it's lighter, easier to manage, like a diver underwater. And yet, gravity still shapes its form. The folds, the wrinkles, the way your thoughts move along chemical gradients. Everything inside you is a conversation between chemistry and pressure. And pressure answers to gravity. The gravity of others, you pull on others. Yes, you. Your mass creates gravity. Tiny, insignificant, but real. If two people stood alone in the universe, floating in darkness, they would slowly drift together, like moons, like lovers, like echoes, looking for sound. Even your touch, your HUG, is gravitational. We are not alone, even in space. Even in sleep, we are always falling toward someone. The planets. Inside your organs orbit something to not planets, not moons, but homeostasis. A balance of systems, always moving, always adjusting. Your lungs rise and fall. Your liver filters, your kidneys cycle, your gut contracts, each with its own rhythm, each obeying pressure, each grounded in gravity. In microgravity, these systems falter. Bones lose mass. Muscles shrink. Glutes pull in the skull, because without the downward pull, the dance stops making sense. Gravity is the conductor. Without it, the orchestra still plays, but out of tune. The wounds that float even. Your healing depends on gravity. Blood clots form differently in space. Wounds don't drain. Tissues swell. On Earth, gravity assists. It moves fluids out. It guides cell migration. It teaches your body where better is done. In zero gravity, your body forgets the map. Healing slows. Infection risks rise. Because to recover, the body must know where down is. Healing is direction. And gravity gives direction. The gravity of touch-a-van. The lightest touch creates weight. A hug, a handhold, a brush to the shoulder. They are physical. They are pressure, tear, gravity, in miniature. Your skin has receptors that measure force. They recognize heaviness. They distinguish between comfort and harm. And your mind evolved in a world where down was constant. K associates weight with presence. To be held is to feel gravity. To be weightless is to be alone. The space between stars and skin. One day, you might leave Earth, float among satellites, sleep in orbit, see the curve of the planet through your window, and yet your bones will miss the weight. Your muscles will ache for resistance. Your heart will forget its shape. Your balance will drift. You will dream of falling, not because you missed the ground, but because your body was born from it. We are not meant to float forever. We are meant to fall gently together, to rest in the invisible arms of gravity. Returning to the pool, you are lying still. The gravity is still working. It keeps your blood circulating. Cute spine aligned. Your lungs heavy at the base. It tugs softly at your eyelids. It wraps around your legs, folds you into the mattress. You are not asleep yet, but you are sinking into silence, into rhythm, into that quiet understanding that you are here, on Earth, held, safe, asterisk, good night, dot, 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 dot,